You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So I'm checking out my email this morning. A number of you sent me this one. Just had to do it. Free heroin, cocaine, and meth are handed outside of the Vancouver Police Department, Vancouver, British Columbia. We gave 3.5 grams of each drug. What are they doing up in Canada? What's going on? This makes no sense at all. Free drugs for all, not ice cream. Drugs, hard drugs, heroin, coke, and meth. Let's just hand some out. Don't worry, guys. It's clean. Good luck with your drug addiction. Good luck with ruining your lives. Don't take too much. You still might die. But know that we've been good people, and those are clean drugs that you're ingesting into your bodies, that you are continuing the cycle of addiction. Good luck, guys. Well done. Come on back. We'll be here for you. This is just nuts, isn't it? That's what we're checking out today. But if you're new here, my name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read the news you're probably not going to find in a lot of other places because it's difficult stuff that we talk about here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Why are we talking about drugs being handed out in Vancouver, BC, if this is the Seattle Real Estate Podcast? Because real estate, a lot of it has to do with community. We've got an opioid epidemic going on, and people are just like, oh yeah, well, it doesn't really impact me. It's just kind of, and this is one of those things where you look at it and you go, oof, that is not good for a community, handing out free drugs. That is my take on it. Fentanyl, I know it's out there. I know it's killing people in record numbers. I just did an entire podcast on that. That is a thing. I've had personal experience with those around me on multiple fronts of people getting hooked on the whole stuff laced with fentanyl, and it is scary stuff because there's a point where you're like, there's a good chance that that person may not be with us for very much longer. Because you get a big dose, you don't know what it is, you can't tell. These little pill presses, they just bang out these pills, people crush it up, smoke it, take too much, and die. And that is what's happening. There's no data or science behind that. It's just happening, right? You know what I mean? It's just, this is what's going on. There's no question. So let's jump on in. We've got that one, and then I'm going to revisit a Jason Rantz article from earlier in the year that is kind of along the same line as this. Advocates for a safe supply of drugs handed out heroin, coke, and meth outside the Vancouver Police Department Wednesday, July 14th in the afternoon. City Councillor Jean Swanson, along with members of the Drug User Liberation Front, otherwise known as DULF, and the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, VANDU. So we got DULF and VANDU distributing the free drugs outside the Vancouver Police Department. Let's be clear. I'm a hard no-go on this one. Hard no-go. The collective action demonstrates the life-saving potential. This is the spin. Life-saving potential of a community-led response to the crisis of prohibition in Canada as a necessary alternative to Vancouver's proposed model of decriminalization, explains a news release. The drugs that were handed out were tested via FTIR spectrometry and immunoassay, whatever that big long word is, I don't really know, and are free of fentanyl analogues, benzodiazepines, benzos, and other harmful adulterants. Okay, so these drugs don't have the crazy fentanyl-laced stuff that's killing people in them. All right, but this still isn't good for people who are addicted to drugs. More drugs, free drugs, that's not really the answer. You want to try and get them some help so they can get off the drugs. That's what we should be focusing on here. And yet we seem to be going in all these sideways directions. Oh, let's try this. Jeremy Kalicum, the DULF organizer, tells Vancouver Is Awesome, that's where I'm reading this from, that the crisis is unbearable and it's ridiculous that we have to put ourselves at risk to move forward with the common sense harm reduction principle. Free drugs. Ooh, I don't know. I can't really get behind this one. The group spent roughly $3,000 on drugs and distributed it among 4 groups. We gave out more than the proposed threshold limit that's in Vancouver's proposed model. All right. Their model must be really, really small. We gave 3.5 grams of each drug. Kalicum says the funds for the drugs were raised on DULF's online fundraising platform and distributed to VANDU, tenant overdose response organizers, the Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society, and Coalition of Peers Dismantling the Drug War. Those are some groups right there. Each group got 10.5 grams of drugs total. All right, 10.5 grams. They didn't really hand out that much, did they? No. Today, here's the post from VANDU. Today at 1 p.m., VANDU and DULF BC will be distributing clean heroin, meth, and cocaine outside the Vancouver Police Department station at Main and Cordova. Block party at Hastings and Cordova at 2 p.m. All right, so at 1, we hand out the drugs, and at 2, we've got a block party going on. Man, I don't know. D-Day. We've got live bands. We've got free food. We've got a crack pipe. We've got what looks like kind of a weed pipe-ish. We've got and these are all characters with big smiley faces, holding hands, looking real happy. We've got a hypodermic needle with kind of a sleepy look on their eyes, but they're all, promoting live bands, free food, safe drugs. Is there such a thing as safe drugs? No, I don't think so. Even legal ones that you get at the hospital, you take too much, you get hooked on them, your life can become miserable. You gotta watch out. Fewer drugs, probably better. Protect against the Vancouver model of decriminalization, gold ticket giveaway at 1 p.m., block party with free food, 1:45 at VANDU. The group aims to raise awareness of the deeply flawed aspects of the Vancouver model of decriminalization, which includes the disproportionate influence of the Vancouver Police Department. What? Unreasonably low drug thresholds and lack of provisions for safe supply. Man, this whole thing has just gotten way out of hand. No wonder we have such an increase in addiction. We're just basically saying, hey, here's your free drugs. Here's your free needles. And I'm going to read the Jason Rantz article. Here's a new way to ingest those drugs that in case your veins are a little tired of all the drugs you're doing, here's a new way. Put them up your butt. That's literally the second story I'm going to read. Additionally, the group underscores the proposed model risks causing significant harm to those who use drugs because those who are using drugs risk causing themselves significant harm, period. Right? Especially those at intersecting marginalized social locations, such as people experiencing homelessness, BIPOC community, and those from the LGBTQ2S community. And there's an asterisk there because there's a whole bunch more. We're not getting into those. In that community. All right. Drugs hit those groups, yes, but they also hit just about every segment of society. Anybody can get addicted to this stuff. It's highly addicting. That's the thing. And by handing out more, that doesn't really address the problem of trying to get these people off said drugs so they can lead normal lives, does it? Just because they're clean doesn't make this right. The drugs are clean. Oh, these drugs don't have the fentanyl in them. Okay, that's not really the point here. I see where you're going with this, and I don't agree. The collective is rejecting Vancouver's proposed model for the following reasons. The proposed threshold limits in the Vancouver model are dangerously low and don't conform with actual patterns of drug use. Maybe that's why we have such an overdose issue right now? I don't know. Could that be? Could that be a cause and effect? People are using too many drugs and they're killing themselves? Okay, there's that on top of the whole, you get one bad batch, something laced heavy with fentanyl. That's what's putting people down as well. So, okay, so you do have the clean drugs, but how about what if people got off drugs? Would they die then? They would die of other causes, hopefully much longer after they've lived a full life. Doing all that stuff they can't do when they're looking for their next hit. Is that a thing? Apparently not here. The lack of an exemption for community-led compassion clubs for the distribution of safe supply. So literally, they want an exemption for these clubs to just hand out drugs willy-nilly. Here you go. Have a nice life. Or, do the best you can. The exclusion of drug users from meaningful participation in the development of drug policy. Okay, have you ever worked with somebody that's heavily addicted to drugs? Have you seen how their thought process goes? It is not a clear process. These are not people that are like, yeah, I know I take too many drugs and I need to get off. But if you could just cut it down from this level to this level, I think, we're going to be okay. And then at this point in time, I'm going to be able to get off. Their rational thinking has left these people because their whole thing, their bodies are screaming out to get their next hit of drugs. If they haven't had them for a while, it's horrible. You're not going to have drug users in meaningful participation or discussion in the development of drug policy. You might have former drug members, and you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that recovering drug addicts are not going to be down with handing out free drugs. If you go to an AA group or an NA group, do you think you're going to be sitting around going, so what do you guys think? Free drugs for all? I mean, what could go wrong there? This couldn't be bad, could it? I mean, let's just give this a run. It's like another social experiment that you kind of look at and go, all right, you guys are doing that. Don't agree with it, but we're just going to we're just going to see what happens here. Where do you think these people get better with more free drugs? Do they just take the free drugs, probably shoot them, smoke them, put them up their butt, whatever it is? Do you think that, that's what happens? Their lives just get worse. It's not good. It's kind of like we had a big increase in overdose during the pandemic because people had more money with the whole Fed handouts. If you lost your job, all that whole thing. So people had more money and they had more time on their hands and they just sat around and maybe they're frustrated, they're bored. Drug use went up. So did correspondingly opioid addiction, overdoses, just overdoses in general went up significantly. It was pretty major. And it was one of those things where you're like, okay, we want to save all the people from the coronavirus. State of Washington, we just had over 6,000 people die from Rona, period. How many people have we had die? How many people are we still continuing to have die of drug overdose? And we've been in a crisis here in Seattle since like 2015, or is that King County? Since 2015. We know we're in a crisis 6 years later. And here we are, record levels of overdose. It's a thing. Here we are. No, things aren't going right in the direction in this battle, are they? BC, British Columbia, marks 5 years of opioid health emergency. April 14th marked a sobering anniversary in British Columbia. 5 years since the overdose health emergency was proclaimed in the province. Same thing as King County, same thing as Seattle. So a lot of communities have been hit by this all at once, right? In the past 25 years, more than 12,632 British Columbians have died of illicit drug overdoses. That's equal to the population of the city of Terrace. I don't know where Terrace is, but it's a population of about 12,632 people. Since the 2016 emergency declaration, some 7,000 have died. More than have died in the state of Washington, where I live, from the coronavirus. And yet we shut down the economy for that. Interesting. And it's kind of like handing out, all right, here's something that might give you the coronavirus, but it's clean. Don't worry about it. It's clean. Clean drugs. Absolutely crazy. By January, an average of 5.3 people were dying daily. And I think during the coronavirus, we've estimated 12 people a day across the United States have been dying of overdoses. BC's chief coroner, Lisa Lapointe, said overdose is the fourth highest cause of death in the province, with the average age of death being 43. This is just horrific. And this is our solution. This is a proposed solution by these clubs and these groups. Let's hand out some more drugs. It's just kind of what we're doing. Let's take a look at Seattle tax dollars. Let's take a look at this one from Jason Rants. This is a little brutal. This one's a little brutal. Seattle tax dollars provide heroin pipes and booty bumping kits to homeless addicts. This was a while ago. This was March of 2021. A self-described social, and this is Jason Rantz again, a self-described social justice homeless shelter is using Seattle City funds to feed addicts deadly disease. Tax dollars are used to buy heroin pipes, syringes, and booty bumping kits, which allow users to rectally inject drugs for a more intense high. All right, so he throws in the intense high. That is a given. Did you see The Wolf of Wall Street? I mean, come on now. That's just how it's done, right? The downtown, and if you know that reference, you know that it's ridiculous. It's drugs up the butt. If that is the direction you are going, you might want to check your life projection. You just check that out. All right, here's what we're doing. Whew, these are not within my life goals. This is probably not how I should be running my life. Let's do a little, let's do a little recheck on how things are going. The Downtown Emergency Service Center, DESC, they operate several low-barrier shelters in Seattle, and they operate a big one with the Morrison Hotel in downtown Seattle. And they're in the news fairly often because they've got there's a lot of crime stories going on around the Downtown Emergency Service Center and the places that they operate. They serve the chronically homeless population, including those with addictions so severe that they've stayed on the streets for, in some case, years. Rather than offering a regimented, tough approach, the Downtown Emergency Service Center helps keep them addicted with what some claim is a harm reduction strategy. Here we go again, a harm reduction strategy. Don't try and get off drugs. Take these clean ones. You'll feel better. So this storyline from Jason Rantz actually made it on Tucker Carlson. The city knows that the addicts will in all likelihood continue their deadly addiction regardless of what case managers say or do. So are we just giving up on these people? It looks that way, right? Because you hear a lot of stories about how people later in life, they get off the drugs and they're able to piece their lives back and be a contributing member of society. You keep giving them stuff to keep doing this, they don't even have a chance. So DESC offers tools to be safer. Flyers adorn the walls of their locations, encouraging two lower risk alternatives to shooting up: smoking heroin and booty bumping. One flyer notes staff are handing out heroin pipes, 3 kinds of glass, not just one, to anyone who wants to try smoking heroin rather than injecting it. Smoking is a lower risk alternative to injection. Give it a try, the flyer enthusiastically endorses. A second flyer promotes a free booty bumping kit as a good choice if your veins are hard to hit. All right, if your veins are hard to hit, yeah, that could be genetics, right? Because some people, you just go to the doctor and they have a hard time finding a vein. But more than likely, it's because you have been abusing your body with drugs for a long time. And your veins are like, no, don't shoot us up. Don't do that anymore. And you can't find the right spot. You can no longer, just the whole needles. I'm not a fan of people injecting themselves with needles. Just, I don't really like needles to begin with. I don't like finding those plastic orange caps all over Seattle, the needles, the whole syringe setup. It's just, ugh. But then again, I'm not a drug addict, so it's probably why I'm doing this podcast. I feel bad for people who are, and I think we should be getting them into treatment and offering them treatment versus offering them a further fast track to increase their drug usage. Under this method, addicts use a needleless syringe with no needle to inject a mixture of water and either meth or cocaine through their rectum. It offers less risk of infection and abscesses and promotes that it doesn't leave tracks. This is literally a thing. This isn't a popular means of getting high. One need not spend too much time wondering why. Oh, my word. I mean, this is literally where we're at. I mean, this is crazy talk, right? This is crazy talk. I understand that this is one way to get the drugs into your system, but at that point in time, don't you want to kind of assess things and go, you know what, if I'm considering putting drugs there versus there, oh, maybe it's time for me to look at where things are and where I want things to go. Unfortunately, people who are in this cycle of addiction don't have that ability to have a clear head and do stuff. You watch somebody go through detox, and it takes a long time for them to be able to start thinking normally. Their thought patterns, they're fried. They have fried drugs, brain cells. They've fried ways of thinking because they've just been on a one track of getting their next hit. This doesn't help. This doesn't help them get off. Maybe it keeps them clean, alive in a cycle of addiction, but we're trying to get them off. I think as human beings, we should try and help people get off, not encourage them. All right, here's some free drugs. All right, here's a new way. That old way of you getting high, that's not working out for you. Here's a new one, and here's some free paraphernalia for you to make this happen. The number of tax dollars being wasted on this morally dubious strategy remains nebulous. The mayor's office ignored requests for comment, and Seattle's Human Services Department offered little more than talking points explaining the strategy, ignoring direct questions on whether they endorse the flyers. You're using taxpayers' money to help people put drugs up their butt. That's the thing here, right? Am I okay with that as a tax-paying member of society? Probably not. If I was Seattle, I'd be like, no. This is a hard no-go. The DESC Executive Director, Daniel Malone, however, confirmed he's using city funds for the heroin pipes and syringes. His approach is about the big picture. We try to reduce the stigma around substance use to encourage clients to share openly and honestly about their experiences and needs. We speak to clients frankly and directly about the risks and dangers of substance use and the options available to them about changing their use, Malone told my Seattle-based radio talk show. Jason Rance is the radio guy. We have substance use disorder counselor and opioid treatment nurse positions at the shelter who provide motivational interviewing and individual and group counseling, while still simultaneously handing out different ways to inject said drugs into your body, allegedly safer. Man, this just doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction, does it? It's undoubtedly true that both of these methods can be safer than traditional intravenous drug use. Okay, but that still doesn't mean you want to encourage it. It's equally true that this behavior only delays an addict's inevitable tragic death. That's the deal. You're just not even really giving him a chance. Can one participate in motivational interviewing when he just booty bumped? That's a really good question. Will an addict choose to go to counseling over a stop at the front desk for a new heroin pipe and then go out, score some heroin and smoke it? Research seems to suggest that this approach doesn't work. I think that's a pretty obvious statement that just makes total sense. Research seems to suggest this approach doesn't work. Free drugs. I don't believe you put that on top of this. We're just talking paraphernalia here. The free drugs up in BC? For the promise of innovative and pragmatic approaches to addiction, the city of Seattle and the program it funds have been abysmal failures. Homelessness isn't just getting worse. Addiction is too. Okay, so that's where, if you look at these issues, is this getting better? No, it's not. All right, then more drugs probably isn't the answer. Cleaner ways of getting said drugs into your system. Should that be the focal point? No. And for, a fair take is that we're not saying that this is the focal point. We're just saying this probably isn't a good option either. Last year, the region saw a surge in fentanyl and meth overdoses with worsening heroin addiction. Some 64% of the chronically homeless acknowledge that they're addicts. All right. What percentage doesn't acknowledge that? 15%. Let's just say that's the case. That's like 80% of your homeless are addicts. They're addicts. That right there, we talk about homelessness and addiction are just kind of go hand in hand for a lot of people. Not all people, but for a lot of people. That statistics right there kind of tells you, even if it is just 64%, it's well over half of the people homeless on the streets. They're addicted to drugs. Their quality of life has deteriorated. Break-ins are common as addicts steal what they can, then sell the stolen property for cash to feed their habit. Taxpayers are fleeing. Software startup Syndio became the latest in a long string of home businesses to ditch Seattle over safety concerns. That was Maria Kalicum, and that was a Pioneer Square startup business. And they basically said, yep, we're out of here. This area is no longer safe. Homeless issues, drug use, just the whole thing, crime, break-ins. And they had a number of female employees, as I remember. It just wasn't safe. And so this storyline kind of goes hand in hand with, all right, you just encourage this stuff. Here's what you're going to end up with. It's not going to be pretty. We want to stay in our city. We want to support the tech boom and growth and support the community is so robust and thriving in our city. But from a logistical place of business, it's getting really tough to figure out where to be from a safety perspective, CEO Maria Kalicum said. I'm struggling to figure out how to continue to be part of this awesome tech community in the city of Seattle while balancing employee safety and figuring out where we can be. You want to be in the heart of things, but in the heart of things is also in the heart of things, if you know what I mean. It's rough. It's not good. Parks are overrun with addicted homeless, some so violent and aggressive, they're becoming a no-go zone for kids. At Miller Park, parents and youth sports coaches have been sounding the alarm for months. That eventually got cleared out after a number of incidences there. This year, with the way the field is, it's unusable, youth baseball coach Leo Lyon said. 3 of the 4 dugouts are occupied by homeless tenants. If a foul ball goes over the backdrop and hits somebody in the head, what happens that way? So we've just got this whole situation that goes down this enormous pathway. And you know, what are homeless folks that are supposed to be the champions of the homeless people? Their solution is, let's give you a cleaner way to shoot up. I don't think long-term that is what these folks need. They need the ability for somebody to help them get off the addiction off the cycle of addiction. That's what they need. Yet we're just kind of enabling them to continue down this path. Now, people are going to jump on me and say, "Hey, you're not really considering those in the throes of addiction. This could keep them alive until they get to that said point in their life." Yeah, but it might also just straight up kill them in the meantime as well. Either way, you're injecting illegal drugs into your system. That's not a good thing. That's not how we want to be helping our fellow human being, I don't think. I think getting people into treatment and trying to help them get clean, if that's what they want. A lot of these folks have kind of given up. So they're just going to keep doing the drugs. By handing them out drugs, handing them out paraphernalia, I don't really think that's the solution. I think it's just enabling behavior. But we're such a progressive society here in the Pacific Northwest that we're just okay with this. And we just kind of hope that people will do better on their own. Give them a little bit of counseling, maybe give them a heroin pipe, give them some free drugs. We'll just see how it works out. Social experiment that if you're reasonable, you're probably going to go, what the F? It's kind of where I'm at. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're okay with this. I don't know. Most of my audience, they're going to go, what? This is really going on in the Pacific Northwest? Yes, it is. Here we are. July 2021. This is what we have going on. All right. Thanks so much for being here on this episode of Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you're on the YouTube, because all my subscribers seem to have gotten unnotified by who knows who. It just happened. Miracles. Things just happen. We don't know why. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you guys in the next one. Stay safe. Until then, we'll see you soon. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.